focus. Ideate, innovate, enable. Forbes India presents The Big Shift, powered by LogMeIn. Be limitless.
Hello and welcome to Forbes India presents The Big Shift, powered by LogMeIn. The COVID-19 global healthcare emergency has thrown unique and unprecedented challenges to businesses around the world. Needless to say, technology has been a savior and the single biggest unifying factor through this pandemic, as businesses have strived to maintain business continuity, to ensure employee safety, and to meet customer demands in a rather tough market. A rising trend through the pandemic has been that of enabling remote working across the world, a trend that might just be here to stay. That's what we are discussing today on The Big Shift, and I'm very pleased to be joined by a set of eminent stalwarts from India Inc. Let's welcome them. Ved Prakash Nirbhaya, CIO of Tech Mahindra; Subramaniam Putrebu, CIO of Mindtree; Abhijit Mazumdar, CIO of Tata Consultancy Services; Vidya Rao, CIO of Genpact; and Rahul Sharma, Managing Director, India and SAARC region at LogMeIn. Welcome, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us here today. It has indeed been a life-changing couple of months for all of us. Remote working has indeed been crucial to ensuring our own safety and ensuring that work goes on as usual. I, for one, never thought that we would be broadcasting remotely and connecting remotely with CXOs. So indeed, it has been a new experience. Ved, if I can start with you first. At Tech Mahindra, how crucial has the role of remote working been in order to continue business as normal? What were the initial challenges that you were dealing with when you put almost 125,000 or more employees of yours across the world onto remote working? And 3-4 months down into the pandemic, what are the current challenges looking like?
I think the key challenge for us was to ensure the continuity of business for our customer, who are actually providing very, very critical services into various domains. For example, they are serving hospitals, they are serving telecom companies. Just two examples which I am giving, that these are very important for us to ensure that their business continues so that we can serve not only them, but full world as well. So challenges, as you probably everyone knows in the industry, that we all have business continuity planning, but none of us assumed that the scale of business continuity will be required at this level. I think we were not completely prepared that we have to serve each and every geography, each and every customer at the same time. So obviously the challenges which came to us was logistic. When the lockdown came with a very short notice, we had to ensure that people are able to move to their home, people are able to actually carry their laptop or desktop with them. And so one of the main challenges was that. Then second problem was, as you know, some of the controls which has been actually eased down very quickly by the government was to ensure that we can work from home. But government was good from their side. They actually eased a lot of norms of working from home. We got a lot of permissions very quickly on the fly. That really, really helped. Also, we had to approach each and every of our customer to ensure that they give us permission to work from home, because each customer has their own security requirement specific to them. So we have to approach each one of them and take their permission. And last but not the least, actually very important for us, was our employee safety. So we had to ensure that employee remains safe, they are healthy, and they actually are very well communicated in all aspects which we are doing in our company.
Right, absolutely. It has indeed been a test on many fronts for business leaders. Subbu, even before the pandemic, India Inc. had been talking about equipping itself for the VUCA world. In that sense, would you say the pandemic has been the greatest test of organizations on seeing how prepared they were for a completely volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world? At Mindtree, what are the measures that you've taken to mobilize your remote working?
While we have as a policy for Mindtree Minds to work from home, it's not that the entire team's working from home is a norm at any given point in time. So that way, one of the key things that we had to deal with is the change management in terms of how teams come together and then collaborate remotely to make sure that the commitments to the customers are all delivered, right? So while I think the few points that covered in terms of if I have to put it in different forms, one is making sure that the infrastructure is available from the remote locations for when the people move to their home locations or from remote locations. And the second is in terms of the policies to make sure that they have enough ability to really make use of the remote connectivity for the work that they perform. That's where the government policies have come in handy to make sure that whether it is providing a remote desktop support over a voice calls, which has always been a restricting policy from the government perspective. And the last is in terms of how people change in the new environment, where they have to really see only a portion of the team working from home versus the entire team working from home in the new norm of delivering things.
Right, absolutely. Let me also bring in Abhijit at this point. Abhijit, at TCS, you've in fact declared that by 2025, 75% of your workforce will be working remotely. What made you arrive at that decision, and how is TCS gearing up for this mammoth goal?
I think we embarked on this journey of enterprise agile, and as part of enterprise agile, we have been talking about what we call as multi-location agile and boundaryless agile for the last couple of years. And what we are currently seeing is a logical progression, which is what we are calling as the secure borderless workspaces. The same concept taken forward. So we have been actually making investments around this for the last, more than a couple of years. We have been talking to our customers, we have been talking to our associates to make everybody comfortable and work on this model. And we would have probably planned to execute it over the next few years. This pandemic just accelerated the time frame, like a lot of other things in the world. It just accelerated the time frame for us to adopt these SBWS, as we call it, and ensure that we go there. The key thing that we see is that this new model has made a lot of our associates really more productive. A lot of time wasted in traveling to and from offices have been become productive. They have been able to spend that time with their family, taking care of other things, especially in these challenging times, and that really has been quite useful. One thing that we are still working towards, I would not say we have addressed it, but a lot of conversations that typically happen in an office is informal. We have all heard about the water cooler talk. We all have those moments where your colleague and you get together and try to attack a problem jointly. We have been using technology to address many of these things, but I would say that that's a work in progress, and we need to figure out how to address it going forward.
Right.
One more thing that we need to also work on is how to make sure that our employees are not feeling isolated when they are working from home. And that is an area that's, again, we are investing significantly in engaging with them, ensuring that they are connected and they are taken care of. But it's again work in progress. We are learning as we go, and we will probably have to do many more things as we scale up.
Right, absolutely. People management really lies at the core of enabling remote working. Vidya, if I can ask you, what has the Genpact experience been with remote working? A lot of points have been covered by your fellow panelists. But now that you're looking at remote working, at least for the foreseeable future, how are you planning to navigate some of these challenges that your colleagues have mentioned?
I think it's thanks for first of all having me. I think it's very similar to whatever my colleagues on the on this conference have shared. It had been very challenging. I mean, none of us, however well prepared you're never prepared for something like this. So yes, there were ups and downs. There were moments of desperation as to whether we'll get this done, etc. But I think now that we have crossed the tide, well, looking forward, I think it's pretty much very interesting to see how this whole situation is going to shape up the work of future, right? The whole aspect of what is it actually going to be in the future? How are we going to work in the future is now the next most talked about topic. Clearly, from an infrastructure perspective, I think all the right things. Most of the organizations are doing it. Moving towards cloud. The journey is pretty much very rapid. Couldn't expect. We hear everywhere digitization that has happened in the past few months was something which we had probably not planned for the next few years, but we could achieve it in the last 2-3 months. In the future, I think work from home or work remotely is going to stay. Definitely cannot say that 100% of the population is going to do that. It's not. That's not going to be effective for any organization. Definitely not for us. Let me speak for my organization. Definitely not for us. We are looking at some point later in the future, not for the next 2 to 3 months, definitely to bring back employees. There is no such plan. As Abhijit rightly mentioned, the China situation and then the Europe actually taught on how to handle the larger population in India. So right now the focus is more on security and what best we can do in terms of information security and data security, securing our endpoints, our networks, etc. And that is the focus for the next few months.
Right, absolutely. Security is definitely something that we'll touch in greater detail in the course of this conversation. But let me also bring in Rahul. Rahul, at LogMeIn, you've been enabling companies with remote working solutions through the pandemic. What are the conversations with business and technology leaders looking like at this point in time? Have you seen significant rise in spends by companies on remote working as well as virtual collaboration tools? What are some of the emerging trends?
So over this pandemic, all of the co-panelists talked about it. Much like SARS is credited with the rise of e-commerce in China, this pandemic will be credited with the rise of remote working or work from anywhere for large businesses or businesses across a lot of verticals. I think as we engage with our customers who do use LogMeIn's technology, there are two clear things which are coming out. The first and foremost is what is the attitude of the organizations towards remote working? And then secondly, what is the readiness of the organization for remote working? Unfortunately, due to the situation, I think the readiness of organizations was tested first before the attitude. And once the readiness has sort of now settled down, there is a lot of thoughts and discussions going on within a lot of businesses about what degree of remote working can their business model actually adopt. And that's one of the clear signs which is coming out. There are no good answers to these situations. Every business will accommodate and adjust to what is meaningful for them. But I think the readiness and the attitude, both of them have been at the center of what this teaches us.
Right, absolutely. Let me also talk a little bit about the client perspective and meeting customer needs from a client management and solution delivery perspective. How challenging has this pandemic been in particular? Like Rahul said, we've seen pandemics before. How has this one been different? And how have you still managed to deliver secure, agile, connected experiences to your clients and really keep the business going? And how important has remote collaboration been in this whole scheme of things?
So obviously, it is very important for us to actually see the client's perspective about their security aspect. So you can understand that we can't just move our people to work from anywhere unless we have discussed with each and every client and specific to their security requirement, what are the additional things they want before we can ship a desktop or laptop home. So security was obviously the prime important item for us. So we have to ensure that all our laptop, desktops are hardened as per our policy, and not only our policy, as per the client security policies. So we have to go to each client, take their permissions, ask what are their concerns are, and then only we could actually move their work at home. And not only that, after we have done that, the important thing was us to stay in touch with them and continuously take feedback and say how it is working, what are the feedbacks they have to see what we need to change, and how do we adjust ourselves. So the connection with client was absolutely very, very important for us. So that has been how we were actually managing our client expectation.
Right. All right. And, taking that security point further, Subbu, as far as regulatory concerns are concerned around long-term work from home or cyber security and data privacy concerns, while the government has eased the work from home norms, at least for the short term right now for the IT sector, what are the tectonic shifts that are really required to make work from home a larger viable option and a very safe and secure option for the future?
The first and foremost is the enhancement is in terms of making sure that the endpoints are more and more secure, because that is the most vulnerable thing in the whole environment in terms of how the end user connects to the work and perform the work assets, right? And the second aspect is how the endpoint is connecting to the network. Predominantly, that is from the VPN perspective. In case for performing the work, if he has to connect either to my network or to the customer network, given we are a software services organization, often we connect to the customer's network to make sure that the work is performed. So that way, how securely the one is connecting to VPN. And the last aspect is in terms of how the educated, rather, now how we are educating the end users from a security threat perspective. Because if you have seen, most of the attack surface from phishing perspective is enormously increasing, and they are coming from different forms and shapes. So that way, it's just not from phishing perspective, but making sure that the users are educated from security perspective, so that it just does not become a IT problem, but it is a organization's responsibility. So that is how we are taking it from our perspective when it comes to security. So that way, while we put many controls in place, we want to make sure that security is not a responsibility of IT, but it is a collective responsibility of the organization, and then making sure that end users are understanding much more than what they were before, to make sure that they're part of this security journey along with us, than leaving it to some organization called IT. Right.
Right, absolutely. That's well said, Subbu. In fact, that is the biggest emerging risk that chief risk officers and CXOs around the world are currently worried about, cybersecurity. But all of this technology and its security comes at a cost. So let's talk about the cost angle as well. And Abhijit, if I can come to you, does enabling work from home at scale for a global organization really lead to higher expenses, added expenses, or would you say there is a significant cost optimization in the long run that you're thinking about? Should organizations be rethinking their business and operating models in a post COVID-19 world?
Yes, there is some immediate investments that needed to be done. For us, as I said, we were already on the path, so we made investments before the pandemic. We just needed to scale up those investments rather than starting to figure out what those investments really need to be to achieve the logistics and the security aspects of working from home, as we called it, SBWS. With regards to the long-term, business model and the cost associated with it, I think it is net positive, significantly net positive.
Absolutely. Rahul, can I ask you to weigh in on the cost bit as well? What kind of reallocation of technology funds needs to happen in the new normal? What can organizations do to put technology in the hands of the end user in the post-pandemic world?
The way I think about it is that from being a very human-intensive work culture, we'll move to becoming a technology-embracing work culture, which means that it'll be a fine balance of what all things will human beings end up doing versus what technology can do at the front end for us. That will challenge and reshape the IT spends, but it's not just the IT spends. It's also on the technology which is being spent overall, or technology which is being bought overall for any business. The panelists spoke about how security will become front and center of everything, because if you have to deploy things at a scalable in a scalable way, it has to be secure, because you can't have your organization be susceptible to phishing attacks, to password leaks, to so on and so forth. So, it's going to be a net positive when it comes to investments. You will have to balance out, investments in other areas where, think about it. A lot of organizations today are already thinking about a model in which they may not have a few offices, or some of the campuses that they had built up. All of that investment will get freed up, and that investment will ideally go to embracing technology.
All right. And Subbu, talking of innovation and collaboration, aside from the pandemic, one of the trends that we are seeing in the modern workforce is the emergence of the millennial workforce. Now, this is a segment that's going to comprise about 75% of our workforce in the next 5 years or so. How are they different in their demands and their aspirations? This is a lot that really craves flexibility when it comes to timings and location of work. So, in that sense, how are organizations preparing themselves to deal with this particular segment of the workforce?
Sure. I think you are very true that the millennials are very different from their asks and then their demands. Now, if you look at the pandemic, the way it is panned out, it is truly leaning towards what they truly aspire for, right? The flexibility of work. I mean, if they are working from any location, uh, and always IT sector has never demanded that they have to have stipulated working hours. So that way, now remote working with flexi hours is truly gives them that freedom of how they do their work performance. And the second aspect is technology and use of tools comes naturally to them. So that way, uh, for example, if I have been using Teams as my collaboration platform, it becomes a natural choice for them to exchange and collaborate information around these tools, and then adopt those things in their exchange of ideas or discussions and forums. So that way, technology adoption also becomes a natural choice.
Okay, so let's also spend a little bit of time on talking about the new normal that we are all referring to on a daily basis now, and what this new normal is really going to look like. What does the road ahead look like? Wade, if I can come to you first, is large-scale remote working here to stay as far as your thoughts are concerned? If yes, how can companies really build culture, build the camaraderie between employees, build that brand ethos using large scale remote working?
Yes, I think interesting point. Yes, it is going to be the norm now. I know the business wise business it may vary, but what percentage are we targeting to? So typically, I believe that 25 to 30% of the people will continue to work from home even in long term, and it kind of basically gel well with the new millennium workforce. They also want flexibility, and working from home also helps that with flexibility. Again, the what is the control, which are the change which are being put in by the pandemic of social distancing, etc. Now, if you see, if it had happened in normal situation when work from home was not supported, it would have been a struggle for all the companies to find space for actually house people. Because work from home is there, automatically it also helps us to actually, those people who are working from office can actually also maintain good social distancing as well. So in a sense, it is kind of complementary in a sense. So I believe that work from home is going to stay as a long-term measure for all companies.
Right, absolutely. Employee happiness is of paramount importance. So, let me also touch upon one of the downsides of remote working, and that is isolation. You are really not physically meeting your colleagues or friends at work anymore, and you're not exchanging those personal chats, those lunch breaks together. So, in that sense, Vidya, if I can pick your brains on this one, how tough is it for organizations to ensure that their employees are happy while working remotely? And how's technology really helping CIOs, CXOs around the world sort of manage the mental well-being of employees and good mental health of employees?
It's, I think, very apt question. I'm missing, well, all the fun that we used to have at work. So I'm sure the younger generation misses it a lot more than us. Look, it is tough. I think it's very tough to in this age of social distancing, to have a party together, to go for a dinner together, or have a drink together. I don't think it is the norm anymore. But companies like ours, at least in Genpact, we do have the HR driving a lot of remote, rather, I call it remote because it is remote now, having a drink on a Friday evening, or having a tea session, or having a group lunch session. I think that has become the new norm. So you do connect using whatever collaboration technology you have. We use either Zoom or we use Microsoft Teams, but we do have a tea event together, maybe a half an hour, just sit together, talk to your teams, understand what's happening. More importantly, I think there is a lot of focus on engaging with your teams, either through town halls or through smaller video blurbs. So our CEO, Tiger, actually does every Friday he connects with the people with a video. So he sends out a video talking about, it's a very short video, but it has become very popular in the organization. They hear Tiger more, they hear me more, they hear our CEOs more, because we are all now trying, and we are going an extra mile to connect with our people, because we don't get to see them physically.
Right, absolutely. And with their very interesting insights there you shared with us, a lot is happening indeed at the intersection of HR functions and technology in different organizations. But these are also times of severe budgetary constraints for companies due to a recession that we are seeing right now. There is a lot of pressure on CIOs to get more done in less, to achieve higher efficiencies using technology while also keeping the costs affordable. So, Abhijit, would you say that in the new normal, in the post-COVID-19 world, the role of the CIO has significantly been transformed and expanded?
So I think the role of the CIO has been expanding quite a bit over the last few years. It's a trend that has predated COVID. I myself am a business person. I used to be in sales, and I was put in this role to get the business perspective in IT. But yeah, I think the role of the CIO has become significantly more strategic, and it will become even more strategic as we go forward, because the technologies are driving the organizations today. Our current chairman has been fond of saying in the past that earlier technology was the enabler for people, enabler for business. Now technology is the driver for business. And I think that is the world that we live in today. So therefore, the CIO's job is to augment the HR, the marketing, the finance, all the different functions in the organization, ensure that they increase in productivity, eliminate the inefficiencies. We have this model called what we call as the machine first delivery model. We ensure that machines get the first right of refusal for any task rather than a human, which is something that has been a trend over the last few years, and that trend has truly accelerated. Going forward, we see significant investments being done in AI ML. Everybody has spoken about cloud, and cloud has really given the resilience and adaptability for many organizations. But going forward, the cloud will be leveraged not just for the infrastructure resiliency, but for newer things. AI ML is one part of it, which will enable the machine first behavior, and also it will enable the level of trust that we can project to our customers, so that they feel confident that we are taking care of them, their data, their the privacy of their associates and their customers' data, and that will help us scale it forward. So from that perspective, we don't see investments in technology going down. In fact, we see the investments in technology actually scaling up, and not just for us, for most of our customers as well. And it's all around good. It will make the world a much more better place.
Right. Okay. And Rahul, we've spoken about technology, about infrastructure, about a robust ecosystem, about affordable costs as well. But I want to ask you, what is the big mindset shift that is required in India Inc. to really scale up to that work from anywhere model in a post COVID-19 world when it's not a mandate? Have we moved beyond the initial reluctance that perhaps players like you saw a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I'm glad you used the term work from anywhere, because we've been it's been synonymous. Work from home is synonymous with being work from anywhere, but there's a very large difference between the two of them. I think this is probably the start of the catalyst where work from anywhere will become a norm, not just home, but being at your client locations once the restrictions are lifted, or being on the road if you're traveling for work. Working from anywhere will become the norm. I think one thing that Abhijit touched upon was very, very critical, which I want to really emphasize, is that I think it's going to become the technology first world. So think about any situations that we currently deal with also. If I have to call up my mobile phone provider, I'm actually talking to a human being. If I have a shipment that I want to return to, from an e-commerce website, I'm talking to a human being. I think all of these things will be, it was a human first and technology enabled scenario where first time you're seeing the shift happening to technology first and human enabled. That trend is going to pick up a lot more. You're going to see significant impact to businesses across various industries with that trend.
So finally, as we wrap up, I'm going to ask each one of you, how are you as CIOs or CXOs reimagining the workplace and the workforce of the future? And as we all step into a new normal, what is your true north going to be, your guiding light for the future? So Ved, if we can begin with you.
Yes, I think we all are imagining how the new normal is going to be. We don't know whether we reach that stage yet, but obviously there's a huge learning in this period. So where I see that, taking the point which was discussed about technology first, yes, I'm seeing that obviously going to be a trend. Obviously, we see the consumption of cloud is going to go manifold. AI will be everywhere. Everywhere we're going to do any process, whether it is actually support of any kind or infrastructure support, IT support, physical support, you will see AI will be present in each and every solution which you're going to see going forward. Now, one of the important thing we will see that working from home brings us a lot of flexibility to how, as a country like India, is going to be impacted. If people can work from a remote location, if they can work on the tier 2, tier 3 cities, that gives them a flexibility. It also gives a flexibility to also employ people from anywhere. Some of the people who cannot leave their hometown because of aging parents or other restriction, today I can employ them.
So clearly, I think, we can't anymore have a 5-year strategy or a 3-year strategy. I think strategy will need to change pretty much every 2 years, because that's the horizon that we can look into. I don't think we anymore have the luxury of saying I will draw a 5-year strategy, because things are changing, technology is changing, new technologies are coming to bear. I mean, look at what the kind of cloud adoption that happened just in the few months, right? Not just from an infrastructure perspective, as my colleague pointed out, but more even from building of applications, more SaaS applications. So I think very clearly, having a very scalable architecture that will probably enable the businesses to be absolutely on the cloud, and enable our people to work remotely.
The true north for us is, always to keep, the stakeholders first, associates, their well-beings and their, longer-term needs are always going to come first. Very closely will come the customers, our, other stakeholders in the society. One of the key things that we have been worried about as we move to the new SBWS model is the ecosystem that we had built around our infrastructure. I mean, if you come to any of our facilities in Chennai, Siruseri, or in Mumbai, in Hiranandani, Olympus Hiranandani, in Thane, you will see that there is a large ecosystem that our associates sustain. It's 18-20,000 associates working. So what happens to that ecosystem, and how can we help that ecosystem also transition as we transition to this new model, is something that we are working with others to see that they should not suffer because we are adopting a new model. So that's something that needs to be kept in mind. So all the stakeholders need to be taken care of, and that's the north that we are all looking at.
Right. All right. So, Boop, what about you?
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone covered the points. and we believe that remote working is going to stay, and the percentage may vary here and there. I mean, one of the things that we are looking at is, while we state a percentage, who would be that working remotely in that percentage is something that we have been debating. So that way, the remote working is going to stay, and certainly that opens up in terms of opportunities where going and developing tier 2 cities and expanding the horizon to remote locations where the arbitrage in terms of the costs will be certainly there. But at the same time, it also gives us opportunity to develop that ecosystem at remote locations as well.
Right. All right. And Rahul, final word to you as an enabler of work from anywhere. How are you envisioning the future, and what is your true north going to be?
Yeah, great question. I think as a company which is born in cloud, our sole focus has always been to enable people to work remotely, businesses to work remotely. And in today's scenario, we feel that our vision of doing that has been solidified. At the same time, we also feel it's a responsibility on us now to basically define what the future of workplace looks like, give it a shape, and then work with technology leaders across the globe to bring that into the new modern workplace. That's the true north that we have always believed in, and we'll continue to operate on.
Right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Vidya, for that very, very insightful conversation and for really sharing your thoughts into remote working, into what the new normal might entail for all of us. Thanks very much for taking out time and being with us here today. Good luck to all of you for the road ahead. That's a wrap of this special conversation. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.
Forbes India presents The Big Shift, powered by Log Me In. Be limitless.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.